I'm really glad that you're continuing to work through the Straight A Guide. And just a simple recap, lesson 1, we spoke about defining success. It's super important if you're going through any kind of crisis to see yourself on the other side of the journey. You've got to set then goals that are very specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. I told you how that strategy is a prerequisite for moving through the Straight A Guide. In my case, I knew I wanted to change the system to help thousands of people get out of prison, but the goals that I had to set was I needed a university degree, I needed to become a published author, and I needed to develop a support network. In the 3rd module, we spoke about having the right attitude. That's 100% commitment to success. It was that attitude that I needed in order to overcome a lot of the negativity that was in prison. Because prison has a tendency of squashing hopes. And that's why in this 4th module, I want you to focus on what we call aspiration. You really need, if you're going through a crisis, you really need to be visualizing, what does your life look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? If you can develop that aspiration, that vision, it's going to give you strength when you're going through really complicated, struggling times. And life in prison is filled with that. Nobody can tell you prison is easy. You might be able to master the situation, but it's not easy. You're separated from the people you love and the people who love you. You're being told what you can eat, when you can eat. You're being told where you can sleep, what you can wear, what you can read, who you can visit with. In fact, in the United States, we frequently point accusatory fingers at other countries for violating human rights. But if we talk about, what is a human right? It's, I think anybody would agree, it's the right to better yourself, to lead a better life. It is the right to communicate and develop skills and put yourself on a pathway for something better. But in prison, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people don't have those rights right here in the United States. So you got to know that's the environment you're going into. You're going into an environment that is as close to communism as we have in the United States, where we've taken away the individual rights, or maybe we forfeited them because of the bad decisions we made, or because we were convicted, right? Take the judgment away whether you made bad decisions. If you're in prison, you were convicted. I was convicted. It just so happens that I was also guilty. So how do I get through a journey where I know I'm going to be incarcerated for 9,500 days? Well, I had to aspire. I had to find a way to empower myself when the system was obliterating hope. I had to find a way to see the best possible outcome. And for me, it used to say, when I get out of here, I want to be able to put on a suit and tie and walk into any room, and anybody who sees me, nobody's going to judge me for having been in prison for 26 years. Or maybe they won't even know. Now, ironically, I don't ever wear a suit and tie anymore. I'm very casual. I work from wherever I want to work. And frankly, I don't care what anybody thinks because I'm financially independent. All of that was engineered to become strong. But the decisions that I made very early in the journey always began with what I aspired to be on the other side. It influenced the books that I read. That aspiration influenced the friends that I chose. It influenced the letters that I wrote. It influenced the journal entries that I wrote, because everything I did, I was always thinking, well, what will a probation officer think about me if they see this someday? What if a judge sees this someday? How is my work today going to influence how that judge sees me? What about a business partner or a banker who's going to give me credit? I used to think about all of this while I was in prison. Where am I going to live? What does a house cost? How much money am I going to need on the other side of this journey? If I start asking those questions at the end of my journey, I can't build a plan as effectively as I start very early. And that goes for everybody who's watching this video. If you're in a crisis, whatever it is, start thinking today about what you want to become 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Even if you have a life sentence, what can you do right now that will advance you as a candidate for stakeholders, for somebody to see you as something different than what you are today? You know, there's a great story in the book of Genesis in the Bible about Joseph, who was incarcerated and would have served the rest of his life incarcerated. But he was a person of faith, and he found ways to bring value to the world, so much so that the king let him out of prison and restored him to a position that was higher than he ever could have been. And there are many examples of that throughout history. Look at Nelson Mandela, who was sentenced to life in prison. But then he got out, and soon after he got out, after serving 27 years, he was the president of his country, revered all across the globe. Why? Because he never had any bitterness or anger in him. The only thing he had was love and this commitment to want to make society better. I want to make society better. I want to make your life better. But in order to do that, I've got to share the lessons that leaders taught me. And I do not help anybody by sugarcoating how the realities of prison life. Here's the reality of prison life. You're not going to like the food. You're not going to like a lot of the people around you. You're going to be told what to do, and you're not going to like it. You're going to be infantilized? I don't remember. They're going to treat you like a child. You will not be able to choose what you're going to wear, where you're going to sleep, or even with whom you're going to share a small living space, right? Prison is complicated, but you have the power to start building something better in order to give you the strength when things are really tough, and they're going to be tough, and there will be more tough times to come. But if you build, if you think, you are going to say, okay, I've got to stay on my plan. I knew how to define success. I knew the goals that I wanted to achieve. I'm making 100% commitment. But when times are tough, let your aspiration, your vision of what you're going to become, carry you through. It should influence the books that you read. It should influence what you write in your journals. It should influence the release plan that you build. It should influence the biographies that you write. And if you record all of this on your profile, which you could do at Prison Professors for free, think about the strength that will give you when you're advocating for yourself and the company of somebody who may be very cynical. If I'm successful in my work, I'm going to persuade lawmakers to open more mechanisms and more pathways for people like you to earn freedom. If I'm successful, I will have relationships with more business leaders who open job opportunities for people like you. If I'm successful, I will create financial resources that we could provide scholarships or grants or loans or just assistance on for people like you on the other side of the journey. But in order for us to succeed, we need you to work in a manner that is consistent with what you said your aspiration, how you define success. If you build a profile on Prison Professors and you earn points, and we can reverse engineer what have you done in the past year, 3 years, 5 years. In my case, it was 25 years. We could see, wow, this is somebody we need to invest in. This is somebody we need to support. This is somebody who is deserving of our generosity or our investment. Let's call it an investment. We want to invest in you because we believe that if you achieve a higher level of success, if you reach your aspirations, well, what does that mean? Well, instead of leading a life of mediocrity on the other side of the journey, where you might be vulnerable to making decisions that could put you back into the system, maybe you become some level of success story that you're making $100,000 a year, $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, which means you're paying taxes, which means that you're supporting your community, which means that you are doing extraordinarily well. And that really is what I believe corrections should stand for. It should stand for something that allows you to go into that system, come out with your dignity intact, with opportunities to live a life of meaning and relevance and dignity, and reach your highest potential. And that's the way we end intergenerational cycles of failure. But we can't do any of that without you and what we discussed in the next lesson, which is taking action. My name is Michael Santos. I'm the founder of Prison Professors. I really appreciate you for being a part of our community.